Just going to video a bit of this game of Espinosa in play to give an idea of how the system plays. Now, so we're on the 2:30 p.m. turn. We started at 12 p.m. Each turn lasts half an hour, so we're about to start the fifth turn. First thing we do is roll for, if we're doing playing with random events, it's always optional. We roll for random event. On a 1 on a d6, we get them. Now the French rolled a 1, which means there's a potential random event. They roll again, but as it happens, it's a no event. If it was, they rolled a 1. So if they were the Spanish, then that would have meant that this force here leaves the field of battle. As you remember, they're the kind of not quite a rabble, but they're undisciplined, untrained army force. But they're quite an interesting proposition. They're kind of like they're a separate army, but they are under Blake's command in this situation. And they are an interesting proposition because, as you can see, they although they're very weak in morale, if they're stacked with a leader, they get bloodlust, which effectively means that they have a sort of bonus on morale on their first attack, on their as they move into close combat. So you can see that any French advance here, they are a big threat, quite a credible threat, at least the first time they are launched against the French right. But because of this random event, which could make them leave, it's also a thought to use them as soon as possible before that event could happen. And that is Blake's intention. He's moved from his headquarters last turn up to Acevedo, so he can give an order in person to the leader there. Okay, but anyway, it's the French turn. So we're in the command phase. The first thing we do is to try and discover any distorted orders. So orders that have previously been issued but not received properly might be garbled. And at this point, you can find out if that has happened. Until you find out, until you discover the distorted orders, then the unit's basically in limbo, and so's the army commander. He knows he's sent an order. He doesn't know his subordinate has not received it properly. He's got it all garbled, or something has gone amiss. Maybe the courier got lost or killed. So until that happens, you cannot issue a new order, and the subordinate leader cannot receive the order that was issued to him and implement it. He could potentially try to move on his own initiative. But anyway, the next point in the command phase is the order issue. Now, the French also are rolling for reinforcements in this command phase, and Victor, the corps leader, is the reinforcement this turn, so he's not on the map yet, so he cannot issue any orders. At this point, I just want to give you a quick look at the French reinforcement track, because it's quite cleverly constructed. You see, you have certain hours, so from 12 to 1:30 has gone. Within that period, on 6 to 12 on 2d6, nothing was going to happen. On 2 to 4, the first division, the first corps would start moving in. On 5, Zip Victor would have arrived, and in fact that is what happened. So that these two arrived on an earlier turn, and on the first roll of that 1-1, it's two of the brigades from the division, and on the second time you get that result, it's the last brigade of that division. So that had happened for me twice within those last 4 turns, and then we're on the 2:30 p.m, so I got nothing. In fact, I had a random event which meant that the reinforcements were delayed, so the French weren't able to roll. And then on this turn we just got a roll of 10, which means Victor's arriving. And in fact, Victor arrives, and on the second time you roll for Victor arrive, his headquarters arrives. So he's always going to arrive before his headquarters. So you see how things are kind of staggered and programmed here. Only after 5 p.m. is there a chance for the optional guns, the French artillery, to arrive, and that's quite slim chances. You see, this is the night, and that's the next day, November 11th, so there's no chance of them arriving this day. And you can see they're all staggered like that. So it gives you the 1st Division, the 2nd Division, and Ruffin, who's the leader of the 1st Division. So you know that Ruffin's 1st Division is going to arrive in 2 packets, and he's probably going to arrive after them. There's a chance he might arrive before, but not so much. You also know that Victor's going to arrive before his headquarters. You also know that the second division is going to arrive in packets, and they will actually arrive with Lapis, their leader. So you have some idea of the sequence and roughly when you might be able to start expecting the reinforcements, but it's not completely certain. And I really like that because, you know, it's not totally random, but it's and it's in a sequence, but it's not certain. So anyway, Victor can't issue an orders. He's not on. We could Villette could now try for local initiative. He's in no orders status, which means he can't move at the moment because he actually what had been happening is that his division had orders to attack Lombardy attack, which is a hill which might be named after this attack. I'm not sure, but anyway, he had orders to attack this, and rolled for attack stoppage, which basically any leader. Any division or any formation going into attack, if you roll 3 or less on 2d6, it's going to withdraw. It's going to decide for whatever reason that the attack is non-viable, and the leader will withdraw 6 or more hexes, and all his units have to withdraw within half his normal command range of him. That's what happened to Villette, who's just about to launch his attack and withdrew. And then, unfortunately enough for the French, Ruffin's division came charging on with orders to push on through to Espinosa. So you can see what the French plan was. Villette pushes these guys out the way, so he takes the hill here, and then Ruffin can charge through to Espinosa. They also gained attack stoppage, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with their leader not being on the map. They're supposed to withdraw to with his range, so I decided they're going to move off the map, and they will then be able to come on when Ruffin himself comes on. So Villette could roll for. He's in no orders, which means he stays static. Could roll for initiative here, but there's his level of leadership, which is a 2. They're generally between sort of 0 and 4. There's a 50-50 chance that he might do something stupid instead of create a decent order for himself. So he's going to wait for Victor. We don't need to roll for any more attack stoppage because everyone here is in attack stoppage. Then the next point would be delay reduction or new order acceptance. So if an order had arrived to Villette, we would roll to see how quickly he manages to accept it, and perhaps if it's distorted. And if an order had arrived and it was still we were still waiting to see if it was accepted, and we would roll for that delay. So none of that's happening now, so we can move on. The next phase is the phasing fire phase. Now, artillery can fire in this phase. Skirmishers can fire in this phase. They have a range of 1 hex generally, except for rifles. I think they only appear in the Vimiero game, the British sharpshooters. But apart from that, normal infantry units have no ranged fire. It's all rolled into the close combat, so it's considered that you don't move up to fire at someone unless you're planning to take their line apart by further advance. So that happens in the close combat phase. So there's no artillery. There's only 1 artillery unit of the Spanish way back here, in fact, at the moment. So that's not going to be happening. So then we move to the movement phase. So these can move straight off. It's not too slopey around here. If we were in steep slopes, we'd have sort of movement points added. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these guys can one for turning around. These guys can move straight off. Victor moves on. He's got enough movement points to get there to Villette. So next turn he can give a command in person, so it will obviously arrive quickly and it has a better chance of being understood and immediately accepted. And then these units are going to stay where they are because when they withdrew, a couple of them lost some stragglers. So if they stay still, after the movement phase comes the close combat phase. There is no close combat. After the close combat phase comes the rally phase. So they can try and recover some skirmishers, some stragglers in the rally phase. At the moment, I'm not going to move them onto the road because they would sort of block it for reinforcements. And as I said, because if they move, they cannot try and recover stragglers. In fact, 2 of them don't have stragglers. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to move these ones they will turn for 1 and then into the town. They're in column, they're not a line moving into town, so that's 2, so that's 3, 4, now they're moving along the road, 4, 5, no, they have to stay within the range, so they're just moving into position on the road, they have to stay within range of him, and that one's going to move up as well in anticipation of Victor's commands. Okay, now the skirmishers in this game have a slightly slower movement rate than the infantry formations. I think that's justified by the fact that they're kind of loose order guys moving around in quite a spread out pattern, trying to more or less keep in contact with each other, so they move a bit more slowly unless they're with an infantry formation, in which they can tag along at the same rate. But those skirmishers are going to stay there. So then after the in the movement phase, we could also have cavalry charges. There's only one cavalry unit in this game, and that's with the Spanish, so there's none of that now. Then we would move to the close combat phase. Close combat would occur if my unit had moved onto an enemy unit, paying an extra 2 movement points over and above the terrain cost. We haven't got that happening. So then we move to the rally phase, and I have 2 B morale units, and one of them has recovered their skirmisher and the other didn't. So that is the end of the French turn. So you can see this game could move along at quite a rate when you don't have any combats. Okay, so now flip my turn track marker. It's now the Spanish turn. Roll for random event. 3, no random events. So then we move into the command phase. No distorted orders to discover, and there is an order issue. So at this point is when Blake, I write down the orders that Blake has written to Asturias, and it's going to be an engage order. So he's got orders to engage the enemy or move within the possible engagement position of the enemy, and the orders can be quite simple. For most of them at the moment, as I said, it's defend in place. So Asturias, he's going to order them to engage second. No, I'm going to have him. I was going to say engage the second French division that moves along that road, but we don't know when that. I'm going to have him engage first. Engage first French division to move out of Quintana, this village here. So basically he's being told attack the first French that move forward. Okay, now what we do is we check the leaders' rating. So they're both the two rated leaders. So we add their rating together. That's 4. Now because it was in person rather than sent by an aide, we add another 2. If it was written, it would be a 0. If it was sent by an aide and it was an oral order, it would get a -1. Now the benefits of sending oral orders is against written is that you can send more in a turn. So if you have to send out 2 or 3 orders in a turn, you might not be able to write them all. So we're on a 6. Then it's an engage order that it has a -2. A general order like moving to a defend already position behind your lines would be a 0. So I have a -2 because of that. So we're on 4. And this current order is general, defend in place, so that's 0. So we're on 4. I roll 2d6. And there's on a 1-1 to 1-2, it could be distorted. On a 6-3, 6-4, 6-5 or 6-6, the order would be accepted, and in between it's just going to be delayed. I rolled a 2-2, so that's a d6. So what that delay of 6, so that means every turn I roll a 1d6, and if I roll a 6, it's accepted. So you can see that could be delayed for quite some time. And I sent that at 2:30 p.m. Okay, so that's that order issued. and that cost, that commander, it has 2, so he has a rating, he has 13 command points, which he's given an oral engage order, costs 7 points, so he couldn't give another engage order at his skill level. He could give nor a complex order. Now, complex order could be a mixture of kind of like move and attack, or 2 different attack orders, something like that. He could give it another general order, but he doesn't, and he could send that off by an aid, but he doesn't need to do that. So no more orders from him. Now, is anyone going to take local initiative? That can be risky. I don't think it's needed. Now I just have a question, is San Roman here is on orders to defend in place, which means he has to stay where he is. So he's stuck as such, pinned to the ground, shall we say. But he does have a command range. Now that is 4, so although he has to stay there, I moved one of his units out, and I don't know, it might be a quibble whether that is still defending in place, because his place is this hill here. Is he really defending a hill by sending a guy out to block that road there? Should I block that road and leave that road that's saying, okay, that's behind the hill? However, he's on the road here. He sent an extension out, so considering that he considers his orders, which were within 2 hexes of his place here, so he could have had units right on the road. That road is within his remit, so he's just defending that road a bit further than might be necessary, but maybe it will help him with his general defend in place order. Okay, so now we move to the phasing fire phase. So there's none of that at this point, and now there's movement. He's seeing lots of French up there, so he decides, okay, that lone unit on his own could be in a host of trouble, and he will actually withdraw him back. So 1 to turn around. He could have thrown him out in lines. He could be sacrificing a delaying force, and that unit's big enough to have 2 line extensions on either side. I'm just going to turn my lights on, see if that's a bit better for you. You get the glare, of course. So that would be an option. But I think, no, he's like, yeah, I'm not here to hold the road at all costs. I am on the hill. So 1, 2. Now that's got 3 contours in it, so that's going to cost an extra 1 movement point in column. It costs an extra 3 movement points if we were in line. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, no, he's going to move this way over the stream. So 1, 2, and that's got 3, 4. Next 5 for the stream, and he's shaken for moving across the stream. 5. That's 4 contour lines in that hex. That's a steep slope. So that's +3. So he can't get that far. 5, because that would be 4 movement points to move into there. So he's just going to spend 1 to move around, turn around. So he's doesn't have his back to the enemy, and 1 to change in. Oh, I accidentally flipped him. Was he in line out there? Anyway, he's got. Yeah, so he was here, wasn't he? Okay, I think he was in line. So that's 1 to change out of line, 2 to turn around, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the stream, and then 7 to turn around again, and then 8 to go back into line. And his skirmishers again to go here. They can be within 2 hexes of him, so they're in an orchard at that point. Now, I made a mistake before playing this game, thinking that skirmishers could delay the enemy, but actually you can just kind of sweep them away in front of you. However, I think it still requires movement points. So I'd have to check that. Yes, that's the point. So if they're in hindering terrain, the skirmishers can elect to retreat before combat, or they could stay. They're in an orchard, which is hindering terrain, so they could stay and force a unit to close combat them. If they weren't in that terrain, they would have to retreat before close combat. Now, either way, well, if he does retreat before close combat, the attacker still spent the extra 2 movement points to move into close combat. So it is an effective delaying tactic. So he's quite happy to stay there. Now, within the movement phase, we could have artillery opportunity fire. We could have reaction charges from cavalry. None of that. So then we move to the no charges from this phasing side. So now it's the non-phasing players fire phase, and there's no skirmishers close enough and no artillery there, so there's none of that. No close combat because no one's in the same hex as anyone else or the enemy. And so then we move to the rally and miscellaneous phase. There's no stragglers to recover. Yeah, I think there's a certain sequence where we have to do things in, but basically, anyway, this shaken marker is removed. If the unit was at a disorganized level, it would remove down to shaken. So that's all fine. And that is the end of the Spanish player turn. So we move to the French player 3 p.m. turn. Roll for random events. They rolled a 3. No, roll for reinforcements. That's a 7. So at 3 p.m. we see that 7 is 1-1. So that would be these fellows that have moved off. And I said, they're only going to come on with rough in. Now this, I have to, because it's not covered in the rules, what happens to a unit that has attack stoppage and they don't have their leader? At least, I don't think it is. Someone tell me if it is and point me to where it is. I'll just have a quick check again. No, I just can't find it anywhere in the rules. I mean, you can roll, your leader's not on, you can roll for attack stoppage, but doesn't say what to do if he's off the board, so it could go either way. They could wait because they have to get as far within reasonable sort of distance away from the attack. So I could leave them there, but they wouldn't be able to move forward anyway, so it's just without their leader doing something, so it's just as well that they're waiting there. And I'm piling up their skirmishers next to them because sometimes I forget about the skirmishers and they can be very helpful. Okay, so discovered distorted orders. No order issue. Yes, so Victor's going to issue an order. So at 3 p.m. he's ordering the same as before, so he's just giving him his previous orders. Now Victor's a 3 on 2, so 3, 4, 5 plus 2 minus 2 is in no orders, that's a +1, so we're on a 6. And I rolled, which one's first? Okay, I'll roll that. So 42 is D4. So if I rolled 5, 6, 6, 1, 6, 2, 6, blah, 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 it would have been accepted. So missed that, but it's a D4. So each turn I roll D6 on a 4, that order is accepted. Okay, local initiative, no, we're not going to have any of that. Attack stoppage, no, don't need it. Delay reduction, blah, blah, don't need that. So, phasing fire phase, no, and movement phase. There is none because no one can really do anything at this point. So we skip straight to the rally phase, see if these guys off board are going to roll for their possible straggler recovery. So one of them lost a straggler. No. And the remaining one of Villets. No, he didn't. So that's the French turn gone. Over to the Spanish turn. Random event. No. Discover distorted orders. None. Order issue. I forgot to move Blake. So he should have moved back to his headquarters before issuing any more orders. So he won't be issuing any orders. Local initiative. No attack stoppage. No one's on attack yet because they haven't received theirs. So now delay reduction. They were on a D6. So no, they rolled 2. So they have not he hasn't taken his orders on board yet. And phasing fire phase. None of that. Now movement. So I must remember move Blake back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now if I'm using road movement, I can ignore the terrain there. So in fact, some of that movement could have been on the road, ignoring the terrain. And we have to be in column, obviously, as an infantry unit. So Blake's 10 to there, 11, 12, 13, 14. He's moving forwards. He wants to be ready to give some immediate orders depending on what the French are doing. He's a bit worried about the build-up he has seen happening. So the only other movement will be this one. So he's going into column again. 1, turns 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8. So this is very slowing him down, that hilly terrain, but that's fine. That's good for us, and it's good for same for the attacker. Okay, that's the only movement, so nothing else happens as Spanish turn. So we go to 3:30 p.m, coming towards evening. We get dusk at 4 p.m. turn. So the French roll. So I'm going to leave it now, but you get a basic idea how the game plays. I'll come back later on and show some combat when it occurs. So I just want to show it for this game because I thought it'd be good for somebody new to the system to see how quickly it can play. Although you've got a lot of turns in the game, you haven't got a lot of forces, and for a certain amount of time not a lot is going to be happening. We'll probably see all the action on the next day. Now just one point I want to mention, as I didn't mention before, is the Spanish get victory points for leaving along this hex. So they have an option to, to stay and hold victory point hexes here, or they have an option to leave. And they gain extra victory points for bringing off their cavalry and artillery, so they could do that kind of as automatic and leave infantry in Espinosa. But that is an option, and the French player gets 3 victory points for every non-wrecked division they take off there, which is a whopping lot. So you can see the sort of what's trying to happen. The French are trying to get through there. That is their main goal. Secondary goal really is to whop the Spanish army. And again, the Spanish, their main goal is to retreat in good order, and the bonus is delivering a bit of a blow to the French First Corps. So I will leave it there and be back later with some more action.